Jamie wanted to help me.
There's no.
You got me?
Hey, Dylan.
Hey, what's going on?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Can you see me or do you see the logo?
I just see the logo right now.
So we're just waiting for Matt to join, and if anyone out there is tuned in yet, we'll just be a few more minutes, just getting everyone logged in, so hang tight.
Hey, I see you, Kelly.
Yay!
Hey.
All right, so we're just going to get started here with Dylan. We've got Matt trying to log in, but the beauty of these things is technology. So he's running into a few technological issues on his end, but we're going to get started. I'm just going to introduce myself really quick. My name is Kelly. I work for Sugoi, Thanks to everyone who's out there who's logging in. We are today talking to, as you know, professional triathlete Matt Lieto and Sugoi brand champion Dylan Gleeson. The guys are both getting ready for Ironman Canada in Whistler next week, and they're going to chat with you. They're here to answer all your questions, so ask away. Okay, so we have, I can't see the name, but we have one question. So, Dylan, leading up to the race, what is your diet regime?
Well, I'm not like overly strict leading into the race. Like, I guess my general diet is pretty good. Like, we eat a lot of whole foods. We have a lot of good quality fats. Like, I eat a lot of guacamole, add coconut oil to everything. I guess in the week leading up, I will add a bit of carbs. I know traditionally people think like pasta, pasta, pasta. I'll have pasta the night before. That's something I have before every race, but I'll add in like some Powerade or some Gatorade into my hydration a few days before, and I find that really helps. But I definitely do it in moderation. Yeah, I don't overdo it on the carbs because the last thing I want to do is feel like flat on race day. And I think if you're eating way too much in the days leading up, it could be a bit disastrous. But
yeah, you hear a lot of people kind of making those mistakes the first time they go out there, and especially with a race like Ironman, you think you need to really, really fuel up, and it's good to hear from people like you guys who are seasoned veterans who know, and it's, you know, I think people can learn a lot from your approach to race day. And so the day before, what does your diet look like the day before the race?
I don't change too much. Like I definitely don't go out for dinner the night before. Like I want to have control of what I'm going to eat because it would be a total nightmare to get food poisoning. I don't think you have to worry about that in North America, but you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the worst. But I'll just eat something. Like I have pasta night before every race. I'll have either chicken or fish with it, just because it's easier for my body to digest.
Right.
You know, if I have red meat like the night before a big workout, or I've never done it before a race, but sometimes I can feel the impact of it because it's, I don't know, it takes my body more energy to digest a big steak. So.
Yeah, of course. So we have a question here from Gregory. In the final week before an Ironman, what do you do for training starting the weekend before?
So I guess Saturday's the weekend before. Generally for me, I've been doing like 5-hour rides on my Saturdays. I'll be doing a 2-hour and 45-minute ride. There'll be a bit of intensity in the middle just to kind of make up for the drop in volume. Nothing crazy. And then my run's definitely a lot shorter. Like I'll be running about an hour and a half on Sunday, whereas before I've been running for 2 hours, 2 hours plus on my long runs. And then during the week in the lead up, it's really, really easy. Everything's way cut down. Yeah, I'll just be doing like an easy run or an easy ride with like 7 or 8 15-second pickups in it just to get all the muscles firing. I definitely don't test my training in the week leading up. Everything's kind of saved for race day. So yeah, if I'm doing training on the course when I'm up there just before the race, I don't get caught up in what other people are doing. Yeah, you'll see guys hammering out there, and it's important not to do that. Just take it easy and save it for the race.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So do you try and pretty much stay off of your feet the day before the race as much as possible?
Yeah, definitely. Like if I'm going to go check out the expo and things like that, I'll do it on either the Thursday or the Friday, especially if it's a hot race. Like Whistler, it could be 30 degrees. Like we don't know what it's going to be right now. So I would avoid spending a lot of time outside in the sun. I would definitely stay indoors where it's cool and, yeah, put up your feet.
Awesome. Gregory, hopefully that answered your question. If it didn't, feel free to ask more. So, Dylan, you've done a number of races. Do you still get nervous on race day?
Yes, definitely, especially for an Ironman. It's not a bad thing. Like, the reality is I know before every big race that I'm going to feel a bit nervous that morning. Kind of how I counter it is I do a lot of visualization before, and I just figure out what I'm going to do race morning. I have a plan, and I think that helps calm the nerves a little bit. And just the way I kind of look at it is when you're nervous, your adrenaline's going, it's just your body preparing yourself to basically go to battle, because that's what an Ironman is. So yeah, I wouldn't stress out too much about it. It happens to everybody.
So we've got actually another question from Gregory. Do you take the day before or 2 days before off? I assume he means from training.
Yeah, so the race is on Sunday. I'll take Friday off, and then on the Saturday, what I'll do is, I think we got to check our bikes at between like 12 and 4 o'clock or something around there. So early in the morning, I'll go do like a 20-minute swim, do a few pickups in that, and then I'll go out for like a 45-minute easy bike ride, few little pickups, and then I'll do a run somewhere in there about 20 minutes. Just super easy, just to make sure muscles are firing. The reason you don't take your day off the day before the race is sometimes you can feel flat on race day, so it's better to take it off 2 days before and then just do some really, really easy stuff on the Saturday before the race.
Very cool. So we've got a question here from Ryan. What do you wear during the race? Do you change clothes for each leg of the race?
I don't. You definitely can. For me, I'll wear a one-piece tri-suit. I find it really comfortable, and I don't really think about it through the day. I know for some people, you know, like adding on 5 minutes to your race isn't a big deal. If you're going to be more comfortable out there running in a pair of running shorts and a singlet, by all means, like, do it. Yeah, I think it's just personal preference.
So it's really about learning what your body is most comfortable in.
Yeah.
And do you train in what you're going to wear on race day to kind of get used to it?
If it's something new that I haven't worn before, I'll definitely try it out before the race just to make sure I'm not chafing in any weird places. But like the Sugoi tri-suit that I'm using right now, I've used it in a few races this year and it's been great, so I don't really have to worry about training in it. I know it's going to be fine.
Very cool. So I think we have Matt here. Matt, are you here? Oh, he was able to get in, and now it looks like he might be freezing. Apparently down in Oregon they're having some internet issues. But hopefully he will be able to join us very soon. Okay, let me just grab the next question here. So Dylan, you're from the West Coast.
Yeah.
Kind of back to the apparel side. You know, in Whistler, in Vancouver, West Coast, the weather can change in an instant. So how do you prepare for that for race day?
Yeah, this is something I haven't really had to think about much in the past because most races.
Hey! You made it. All right, everybody, we've got Matt Lieto here. He made it.
Sorry, everybody. The worst time to get the spinny wheel of death happened about 5:59 till now. So, my bad, but happy to be here. Thanks for taking the heat, Dylan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So, Matt, since you're just joining, we're just talking about kind of strategy for race day in terms of weather. So how do you know what you're going to wear? How do you kind of prepare for whatever weather might come, you know, Whistler style?
Yeah, I mean, I've raced some super hot races, and I've raced some freezing cold races. I raced Ironman Lake Tahoe last year, and wasn't quite as prepared as I thought I was. But I always show up to the race venue with every possibility as far as making sure I've got everything in case it's going to be 95 and the forecast didn't say so, or if it's going to be like in Tahoe, there was ice on my seat when I got on my bike. It was 32 degrees outside. So, you know, I always have arm warmers. I always travel with arm warmers and a vest and gloves. And if I think I'm warmer, arm coolers, and I'll have ice bags. I have actual coolers that I put in transition area to make sure I've got ice. I think it's super important to have do everything you can in case it's warm weather race. But as far as apparel goes, arm warmers, vests are the easiest thing to put on. I think I put arm warmers on for the beginning of Canada last year. I certainly did for Tahoe. You want to make sure you're putting things on that are easy to get on, but are also you're capable to get off. A lot of times I see people put like long sleeve, like skin tight shirts on underneath their race kit, and then 7 hours later when they're on the run, it's 70 degrees and they've got a long sleeve shirt that they can't take off. So make sure that if you're doing layering that you want to have the ability to take those things off. And you know, there's aid stations. You can't just throw your stuff on the side of the road, but you can throw it at an aid station. I'll always put my name and my bib number on the inside of write that on the inside and chuck them and hope that I get it back. You often won't, but sometimes you do. But yeah, you gotta be prepared. Yeah, like I said, I've run races with ice packs on my chest the entire marathon, and I've had races like Tahoe last year where all of us got out of the swim, the lead group, we all got out of the swim, got in the tent together, and all looked at each other to make sure we were all going to take our time. And I put boot warmers on. The only thing I didn't put on was leg warmers, and I regretted it. I, put literally everything I had on. Took a little bit off, but you got to be prepared because it's a long day, right? And a stress is a stress. If you're trying to push your body to its limits for 9 or 12 or 17 hours, your body having to cool or warm itself depending on the temperature is going to be a stress that you don't need.
Dylan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, he pretty much covered all of it. That's why he's the pro.
Actually, just on that, for those out there who are watching who have never done an Ironman race before, what would happen if you actually did take your arm warmers off or your leg warmers off and chuck them on the side of the road? You get penalized for that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, if you take anything, any equipment, even a water bottle, and just throw it on the side of the road, it can either be interpreted as littering or abandoning of equipment. That's a USAT rule. I believe it's an Ironman rule as well. So yeah, you'll get penalized for that. You are allowed to throw anything away at aid stations. So I interpret that as, I'm basically throwing my arm warmers away, but I'm putting my name and number on the inside just in case someone wants to look inside and get them back to me.
Very cool. All right, next question. So, Matt, you raced Ironman Whistler last year, and Dylan, this is your backyard. Tell us, as much as you can, what your race day strategy will be for next week in Whistler. So things like, I'm thinking this person means things like hills, climate, altitude. Whistler is notorious for being very hilly, and also people coming from other areas, they'd have to adjust to the altitude.
I guess for me, the plan for the day is basically not going to hammer it too hard in the swim because the difference between redlining it and going at just a strong, steady pace is probably going to be like 2 minutes. So I'm not going to stress myself in the swim too much. I'll try and get with a good pack at the start. And then on the bike, I'm going to take it easy for the first bit. I think just, for everybody, cruising out to the Callahan, climbing Callahan, it's definitely a good idea not to hammer and try and take it easy. It's going to be a long climb coming back from Pemberton, so I'll have that in the back of my mind, and I'll be saving myself for that. I probably won't be pushing my Ironman pace on the bike until I'm like an hour and a half or 2 hours in. And then on the run, yeah, I'll probably try and take it easy on the first lap and try and do a negative split, but that's always hard in an Ironman. The second lap's always going to be way harder, so yeah.
And how about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dylan described the course pretty well. I mean, that course kind of sets your race plan for you to a certain extent, and I had kind of a similar plan as to what Dylan said for last year in my race. It was to try to go as smooth and quote unquote easy as possible until I went up the climb back from Pemberton. So that did mean really, really staying in control going up that first climb of the Callahan. And I looked at my watts the other day, and it was, on a climb, those watts were the same as what I averaged on the day, and that meant I was holding back quite a lot going up that climb, and I lost a lot of time, but I wasn't quote unquote burning any matches early. And as you said in the swim, it depends on what you're doing. I know for me at this race, the swim is going to be important, and I will redline to a certain point to try to shed some of my competitors. And the difference between my race and Dylan's race is that I'm racing people and places that I can see throughout the day, right? So my goal is to finish as many places up as possible. So if that means going a little bit harder than I can sustain for 2.4 miles for 500 meters to gap guys so they can't sit on my feet, then that's a card or a match that I need to play. Same goes on the bike. If there's times where I need to go a little bit harder to drop guys or to get up to guys that I see ahead of me to make sure that they know I'm around, I'm going to have to do that. But in general, it's a building effort. And I always tell people in any Ironman, you don't want to go anything close to what you feel is hard till 80 miles on the bike. You want to just be ticking them over and just really spinning. You definitely want to have your race pace in mind, but that race pace should be something that isn't super hard for you to push, right? So I make sure that basically I have a window of watts for the first 80 miles, and that window, the ceiling of that window after 80 miles is the bottom of my new window. So let's just say I want to hold 300 watts for an Ironman. I won't go over 300 watts for the first 80 unless I have to do a little effort. But my average would be that, and then the last 30, my goal would be to hold at least that. So if I pace it correctly, I can really gap people at the end. And the same thing, what Dylan said on the marathon. It's a tough course. I think it's going to be a little bit faster this year with some changes that they made on the course, but it's still going to be pretty challenging. And negative splitting, in theory, is what everybody wants to shoot for. And I've done it once, and it was my PR by a bunch in the marathon. So that's going to be my goal to do it again. And people ask me a lot, I go off on a little tangent, but people have a really hard time, especially first-timers, deciding what their goal pace is going to be for a marathon. And that's hard, and that only comes in training, and you can realize, you figure out what you can sustain pretty easily. Like you want to have, that needs to be a moderate heart rate for you. And some people can base it off of 70.3 results, add 40 seconds per mile, and you technically should be able to hold that pace. But my suggestion for once you find that pace, so if your goal is to run a 3-hour to a 3:10 marathon, do not go out faster for your first half than that top end of your goal pace. So you are not allowed to go out faster than 1:30 pace. And if you go through a 1:30 pace and that was super awesome and you feel fresh, then you're going to run a 1:30 or maybe even faster on the way back, and you'll hit your goal. If you go out people always kind of want to think that they can just put time in the bank. So you go out in 1:25, then I'm going to have 1:35 to come back to break 3 hours, 1:45 to come back to break 3:10. That's easy breezy. That never works, and you will blow yourself to smithereens. So if you have a window, which you should, for your goal marathon time, take that pace of the fastest one and make that as fast as you're allowed to go through the half marathon time.
Awesome, that's great. That actually leads into the next question. A lot of athletes, particularly in the triathlon world, will have one area that they're really, really strong at and another area that maybe they're not so strong at. So what advice do you guys have to people out there who are trying to get past that one challenging leg?
Well, that's you got to work at it. That's the only thing. You've got to train your weakness. Recently, somebody told me, you know what they say, you got to train your strength. Nobody's ever said that. That's not what they say. You train your weakness and you race your strength, and you obviously have to train your strength, to make sure you maintain that power, that upper hand in that leg. But you really need to train your weakness, and that doesn't always mean just more hours. If you're a bad swimmer, it doesn't mean swimming 30,000 meters a week. It means figuring out why you are a bad swimmer and focusing on that and trying to fix those things, not just banging your head against the wall. Same with running. If you're a bad runner because you get injured a lot, don't try to run a bunch more. Figure out why you're getting injured and try to find the best way to remain consistent in your run training so that you can put more of that training in over a year's time or 2 years' time, and then eventually you'll become better at that. But you need to train your weakness if you want to get better at it. But it's not always just more is more or more is better. You have to kind of wrap your head around it. And if that means going to going to a physical therapist to have them help you out to make sure you're not getting injured running, then that's an investment you should make.
Dylan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just terms of for like race day specifically, I would say with your weakness, set up realistic expectations for yourself. And it's going to make things a lot easier to stay positive and get through it. Like for me, probably my weakness used to be the swim. It's actually gotten a bit stronger than my run now, and I'd say my run's my weakness. So I'm not going to go out there and try and set myself up for trying to run a sub-3 marathon, because it's probably not going to happen, and I blow myself up and I get really negative out there. So I'm going to come up with a realistic plan with my coach, and I'm going to stay positive with it through the day, and I'm not going to let other people kind of dictate my race out there when I'm out running. I'm going to stick to my plan and just come up with some things that I'm going to tell myself when I'm out there running that are going to help me keep positive. And yeah, that's kind of how I deal with it.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's smart, Dylan. And I think, to add to that, what you're saying about, how to get the most out of it racing is, I did say race your strength, but if that means, if you're not a strong runner, and I might have a little bit of personal experience here, but if you're not a strong runner and you're a strong cyclist, trying to get off the bike first every time isn't going to improve your situation. So use your strength, get as strong as you can in your strength, so that you then, if it's the run or the swim, you dial it back so that you're getting all your nutrition in, you're staying comfortable, you're not pushing yourself, so that you can go to the well during the part that you're the weakest at.
Excellent. So we have another question here. What has been your most memorable race from the past, and why?
For me, it was definitely my first Ironman. I did the Ironman in Penticton in 2012, and I think the reason it was just so memorable is going into your first Ironman, you don't really know what to expect at all. You don't even know if it's going to be possible. You don't know if you're going to blow yourself up out there. And I ended up having, I know people talk about how hard it is to have a perfect day, but everything kind of seemed to, the stars aligned, and basically nailed the time that I thought I would. And there was just something about running down the last 500 meters to the finish line with the crowds and the energy. I don't know, it gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. So yeah, that was a pretty awesome day.
Oh, very cool. So then you became an addict, and now you're here, and now you want to go to Kona. Here we are, right?
Yeah.
And Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I've had a few. I mean, my first one, never thinking, going from an overweight person to never thinking I could do something like a triathlon. I went and raced Wildflower for my first event. I raced the Olympic distance and set a pretty lofty goal for a first timer, and had a great experience all the way through. Mostly great experience. My brother convinced me to race in a Speedo for my first one, so there were some setbacks as far as that goes. A yellow Speedo nonetheless, so it was even a little bit worse once I crossed the finish line and realized the situation. But finishing that event and then realizing that I could do triathlon, and I ended up in the top 10 of my age group, and reaching the goal time. I wanted to break 2.5 hours, and I did that, and that kind of confirmed to me that I could accomplish a goal if I put my mind to it, and set a new goal after I crossed that finish line, and just have kept setting them since. So a lot of great experiences since then, but that was probably has to be the most memorable for me for sure.
And at what point did you sort of, in your early racing, did you just decide you wanted to do this professionally?
I think very early on I thought that was probably a focus of mine. After probably a year or two, and I started doing pretty well, and I felt like I had pressure to live up to where my brother was going in the sport, and that was pretty early on. So he had some successes, but nothing like he had in the end of his career. But I was a little too focused on being a pro at a certain point, and then I wasn't having fun racing, and I realized after a national championship as an age grouper, I crossed the finish line and I didn't win, and I was like really upset, and I threw my hat, and I was like super embarrassing. And 10 minutes later, I saw a guy cross the finish line, and he was like super excited about his finish, right? And so I realized that I need to go back to the roots and having a good time racing, and that's kind of been my focus ever since then. And I just continued to progress, and then after 4 or 5 years, I realized I was just good enough to become a pro, and I was pro. I call myself a professional because I was still working full time, and I was a pro because that was the pace that I was racing. But I was probably a professional for 4 or 5 years before I actually, quit other job and that sort of thing, and tried to make a lean living off of it. And I've just continued to progress and have great experiences, and as long as I can keep living the dream, I will, for sure.
Awesome. And that's actually the perfect transition. We have another question, which is just simply, how do you stay positive?
Yeah, I mean, it could always be worse, right? In most cases, I think it's, we're pretty lucky to do what we do and be in the places that we get to go to race. I mean, Whistler is pretty remarkable, so staying positive there is not as hard because you can just kind of look around and there's great spectators around, awesome views, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, you got to go in with your goals and make sure, as Dylan said, have realistic expectations. If you have realistic expectations and you pace yourself and you stick to a plan, then you shouldn't derail too much, and percentage-wise, you're probably going to have success. And there's times it's Ironman. I mean, I've been taken off a course 3 times in an ambulance because I passed out during a race, and like that, I didn't see that happening. I didn't expect that to happen. But sometimes it does, and I still was able to have a great experience. I had people around me to take care of me when I had problems. But you want to, I believe Dylan probably has more to say to it. It sounds like he's got some mantras and some keywords that he thinks of specifically during the race. I just try to stay positive by interacting with those around me. I get bored out there, and I hate racing Ironman by myself, and if I'm around some guys, I will always chat with them. They tend to get kind of annoyed if I try to chat too much because they think I'm like playing games with them or something, but I'm just bored and I want to chat. But I always make a good time, have fun with aid station volunteers, and try to get interaction with everybody that's going by, and that sort of thing, and that lifts me up and helps me stay positive for the rest of the race.
Excellent. And Dylan, from an age grouper perspective, how do you stay positive?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of just what Matt just talked about. Like, the volunteers at these races are so awesome, and I mean, you're gonna pass an aid station on the run like every mile or every kilometer, so feed off of their energy. Throw some high fives. Like, some little kid wants to throw you a high five, don't ignore him. throwing one, and you're just going to get so much energy from that. And also, like, you can give it to the other competitors out there because so many of them are going to give it right back to you. That's what I try to do out there. And you're going to hit some dark patches during the race. Like, out on the run, like, I may hit a dark patch like 3 or 4 times, but then know that you'll eventually come out, and you just have to stay positive, keep throwing one foot in front of the other. Kind of the mantra that I'm going with this year is no regrets. So I have a little bracelet that says that on it. It's a bit of a long story that I'm not going to get into right now, but I've just been using that for all of my races this season, and it's helping me dig really deep so that when I cross the finish line, I know I laid everything out there. And as long as I do that, no matter where I place, I'm going to feel really good about my day because I know I gave it everything I had. But yeah, it's a long day. So
awesome. We actually have, this is a great question. It's a little bit long, so bear with me. Do you guys have bad training days where you get sluggish and don't get your nutrition right? How do you overcome these bad days? The reason I ask is I think age groupers such as myself have some bad days with lots of self-doubt.
I'll go first, I guess. For me right now, I'm like totally, utterly exhausted from my Ironman build. I'm kind of starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel now that I've started my taper. So I'm definitely dealing with that doubt too right now, but my coach keeps telling me that I'm going to come out, and you just have to trust that you're going to. Definitely through the season, I have good days and bad days. You just do the best that you can with those bad days, and I just chalk it up to good mental training because it's going to be tough like that on race day. So yeah, just trust in the plan, and if you make mistakes with your nutrition, figure out what you did wrong and try and fix that the following weekend. Don't go out for a 5-hour ride with like 2 power bars or something.
Yeah, right. And I think it's important to remember that training is practice, right? So you're gonna have a bad practice every now and again, and you need to just be okay with that. And you need to look at that and not ignore the fact that it happened, and find out, as Dylan said, if it's your nutrition, if you feel like you're just running out of energy or you're dehydrated. Try different things, and as early on in your training for your race, if it's an Ironman, the better is, you can really, switch things up. I've changed my nutrition, a dozen times in my career, and I'm on to something new that seems to be working really well with me. But I've had times where, I've had bad training, and you just need to try to take your emotion out of it and find out what the problem is, and go back to the drawing board. And if it continues to happen, then you need to look at your schedule and how your training's going. If you're doing too much training, or if you're doing too much of the same type of training, if you're doing too much long stuff and not enough speed work, or kind of vice versa. If you do a bunch of speed work and you don't do a lot of endurance training, and you go out for a long 6-hour ride, it's probably going to be a struggle. So you need to make sure that your training lines up with what you're trying to achieve in your races, but on those days that you're having trouble. But I mean, the most important thing in racing and in training is, especially on the mental side of things, is you have to set yourself up for success. And if you set yourself up for success, you're gonna succeed more than not, and you're gonna continue to build your confidence as you go in your training and in your racing. So in racing, if you set, as Dylan says, goals or expectations that are realistic, and you achieve those expectations or goals, then you're going to continue to build your confidence in your racing. Same goes for training. I love building efforts. Building efforts, you pretty much are always going to have success if you start at a moderate pace and build to what your expectation is of a race pace or whatever you're trying to get in that workout. But if you build throughout an effort like that, you're usually going to start feeling better, you're going to start loosening up, and you're going to feel confident. Where a lot of times if people go out and try to do a threshold workout and start at the very, very top end, you're just going to end up degrading and getting slower. And there's a bunch of tools that will help with that. Power meters are amazing as far as that goes, because heart rate is kind of a lagging response, and you're going out a lot harder than you think you are on the bike if you're doing efforts at heart rate. So there's tools you can use, but setting yourself up for success, whether it's nutrition, pacing, or just in your day, right? If you've got to coach a softball game in the morning, and then you've got a wedding to go to in the afternoon, and then you expect to go and do a 5-hour ride, that's not going to work. You need to change your schedule around so that you're able to achieve your goals. So a lot of times we forget about daily life and training. We definitely need to look at the stress that can come with our everyday schedules. Make sure that we're setting it up so we can succeed in our training.
Going back to race day, we have a question here. What do you eat on race day morning and during the race?
Ooh, that's my favorite. Before the race is my favorite. During the race, I figured out what works, but it's not always enjoyable. But yeah, so my pre-race thing that I'm loving and I'm into now, the morning of the race, I eat a ton of pancakes, and because as I think we've talked about, is you have to do what you do in training as you're going to do in racing. So if I'm going out for a 6-hour ride with my buddies, I'm going to have a big old thing of pancakes, a bunch of maple syrup, some peanut butter, and I know 4 or 5 hours into that ride, I've got the juice to keep going, and that meal keeps feeding me, right? So I actually make a mix where I'll put in a blender. Sometimes I do banana. I'm kind of off of banana, but I'll put peanut butter in the mix. I'll put maple syrup in the mix. I'll put base salt, like a electrolyte salt, in the pancake mix. I do non-dairy stuff because I don't really need to mess with dairy on race day. Sometimes, like I said, I'll throw a banana in there, but I'll probably eat 1,000 calories of pancakes race morning. Day before the race, I'll be walking around with pancakes and snacking on those things. But yeah, I love it. A bunch of maple syrup. It feels like I'm just having a good breakfast. It's not as enjoyable at like 3:30 in the morning, but you got to do what you got to do. As far as race day goes, I eat. I think right now I'm on like 350 to 400 calories an hour, not including my hydration mix. I'm using Osmo hydration, active hydration, and I'll go through 6 bottles of that mix, which is 100 calories, 120 calories, but I don't count that into my calories. Then I'll have like a blocks or like chewy fruit snacks, that kind of stuff, and picky bars. And I'll have a Snickers in there somewhere just because I want to eat something that I actually like. But like I said, I'll be looking at about 400 calories an hour because I'll be expending about 1,000, and then it comes down to, at a certain point, the math doesn't add up, and you just kind of reach deep to get yourself through there. But for me, in 9 hours, I'll have 400 calories an hour. On the run, it's always hit or miss with me. Sometimes I'm able to eat a bunch. I've done Ironman Hawaii, and 1 year I had 2 gels on the marathon, and 1 year I had like 16. And I was just able to keep eating. And it was probably a little bit too much in the end, but I felt like I could, so I just kept going with it. But the marathon, a lot of time it ebbs and flows, but usually I'll shoot more for like 200, 250 calories an hour during the marathon.
And how about you, Dylan?
For me, like race morning, I'll usually just have something similar to what I have like any day before a big ride. I'll just do, there's some really good local quality, good quality granola in Vancouver that I get, and I'll have a bunch of that with some yogurt and banana. I'll have a coffee in the morning. And then for the race itself, for the first hour of the bike, I'll probably have a bar or maybe some waffles, and then I'll switch over to liquid for the whole thing. So what I do is I find that gels work really well for me. So in one of my bottles on the bike, I'll mix basically the calories that I'll need for the ride. I'll figure that out, throw it in a bottle, mix some water in there to dilute it a little bit so it's easier to take, and then I just kind of mark on the bottle where I want to be after an hour, after 2 hours, after 3 hours, so I can easily track how much nutrition I've taken over the bike. And then on the run, I'll do the same thing. I'll just do gels mixed in the gel flask with some water, and I'll have some more in my special needs. And that seems to have worked for me. If things go to crap on the run, then I'll be taking whatever I'm craving at the aid stations, but I'll make sure that I keep taking things, because the worst thing you can do is like stop taking nutrition completely, because you'll end up walking eventually. And then I just take water throughout the whole thing. I don't mix my gels with Perform or anything else, just because I try to keep it simple, and my stomach appreciates it. But I realize that it's a very personalized thing for everyone, so you have to figure that out.
You mentioned when you were just talking a special needs bag. For those people out there who aren't familiar with what that is, can you guys just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the special needs bag is huge, right? And that's, in Ironman we depend on the volunteers and aid stations to give us what we need to get through the race. We're able to get gels, bars, often, liquid hydration, Perform. We're able to get Coke, and I'll use Coke, when things get tough at the end of the run. But the only time we're allowed to help ourselves is in special needs bags. So on this course, I think it's around 60 miles. You might know better than me, Dylan, but I think it's around 60 miles on the bike. Usually it's about halfway on the bike, and it's probably a little bit more than halfway on the run, about 14 miles on the run. But that's your opportunity to give yourself whatever you think you're going to want. And you want to give yourself what's on the plan and exactly what you think you're going to need, but you also want to give yourself some treats that if you were out on a bike ride and you were bonking and there was a 7-Eleven or a service station around the corner, and what little treat gets you out of a bad spot, put that in your special needs bag and do that on the bike and on the run. That's your chance to stop at a service station, to stop and get whatever emergency things that you need. So if you have a pick-me-up that you get, if it's a 5-hour energy every once in a while, if you've totally cracked, if you need one of those, put that in your special needs bag. If it's a Snickers bar, put that in your special needs bag. You don't want to be riding your bike and have to pick up a 25-pound special needs bag, but you want to make sure that you have everything if everything's going smoothly. But if things are going not smoothly, I would go there. And sometimes I've even put extra pairs of shoes in my special needs bag or socks, and I've never used them, but it was to kind of settle my mind in case anything went terrible. I knew I had shoes and socks for a change in case a bear attacked me and ripped them off halfway through the race. But yeah, special needs is your opportunity to get what you need from yourself and not just what they have out on course.
Excellent. Dylan, anything to add to that?
No, he covered everything.
So what do you guys do to relax? You're leading up to a big race in a week. You each have goals. What are you doing right now to kind of still your mind and take some time and relax? Or do you at all?
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the relax part yet. I mean, if you followed your training and you trust your coach or you trust the plan that you've built for yourself, then you should be settled by now as far as knowing that you've done what you can do to prepare yourself for the race, right? So for me, I don't get too stressed. I do right now. I'm allowing myself to think about the race, to think about dynamics, to think about how I'm going to attack the race, because I might decide through that thought that I need to change something up and be a little bit maybe more realistic with my goals, or maybe more aggressive with what I'm doing. So I kind of right now I'll let my mind run with that, and then once I get up to the race site, I go, when I'm not at the expo or doing obligations, I'm pretty quiet, and I take time to think things through and make sure I've got everything dialed in. But in the end, it's what happens on race day happens on race day. If I know that I've put the training in and I know at this race I'm the best I've ever been trained for an Ironman, that's all I can do. And then it should be pretty much a catered training day. And if I'm able to do what I do in training every day, I'm going to have a great race. And so I don't stress out too much about it, but I do let myself think about the race just to make sure I've got my bases covered.
And Dylan?
The week before a race, I really just take the opportunity to take care of my body. I'll make sure I go in and get a massage from the guy that I've been going to for all my massages pre-race. I wouldn't go to somebody that I've never been to before. I've had some bad experiences with massages, but like I'll go in and get a vitamin injection from my naturopath. There's a great spa up in Whistler. You could go there a couple days before the race. Yeah, I just take the opportunity on those easy days to really relax and rest up. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of free time in your taper if you've been training hard in the lead up to Ironman. So yeah, I really enjoy that week, just spending more time with my wife and try to relax as much as possible.
So we just have, actually, Dylan, we've got a question for you. It says, Dylan, you race everything from sprint triathlons to full-length ones. Are the sprints more for fun? Does training for the short distances conflict with your training for long-distance races?
I don't think it conflicts at all. I think that high-intensity training has a purpose. You don't need to be training long and slow and steady all the time. In my training, I actually train with a squad that has some juniors in it that only do short course, and there's some seniors in it that do short course too. So like once or twice a week, I'll go out and do training rides with them, and yeah, they'll be like full-on bike races around Stanley Park. It's pretty funny. But definitely early season, like those sprints, I use them as an opportunity to practice my transitions. Because in Ironman, like, yeah, looking at some of my results, like there's been times where guys not in my age group, but I still like to place as high as possible in the races. They'll beat me by like 8 seconds, and if you look at your transition times, it's like, well, I could have been 30 seconds there faster there or 20 seconds faster there. So I think the transition times do play a role for me at the end of the day, and the sprints are really good for that. And also it gets the nerves out early season, and it is fun. But yeah, I did an Olympic a couple weeks ago, like mid Ironman training build, and I really didn't know how it was going to go, but it turned out really good, and I had an awesome time doing it. So yeah, racing's fun, and I think it's better to do it as much as you can because it just makes you more confident, and yeah.
Great. So we've talked a lot about nutrition and we've talked about training, but what about gear? What, if you had to pick 3 of your I can't live without pieces of gear, what would it be? Matt, why don't we start with you?
It's a good question. I mean, I think, we talked about for racing, it's important to have, backup equipment in case the race is going to be a little bit different weather than you thought. But I mean, I did speak of arm warmers and vests. Those 2 pieces are pretty crucial in the Northwest. And so for me, I've had some mid-zero arm warmers for literally like 13 years, and I'll run with those things if it's a little bit cold outside or sprinkly outside, and I'll ride with them all the time. The springtime in Bend, I've always got arm warmers and a vest. That's pretty key. And honestly, a pair of good bib shorts. I mean, I'm on my ass, 20 hours a week on my bike, and if that spot is not enjoying my experience, then race day is going to be tough. So I think those are my 3: arm warmers, vests, and bib shorts. And I'm a bike guy. I've got like 8 bikes in my garage, and those are my toys. So that's the equipment I can't live without. But that's 4. Maybe that's 11 if you add them all up.
How about you, Dylan?
Good quality bib shorts is definitely up there. But a couple other things, just living in Vancouver, it's so important to have a really good running jacket and a really good bike jacket. I got a Sugoi Neoshell jacket this year, and I've been using that on the bike, and it actually takes away the excuse of riding in the rain because I can actually stay warm because I'm staying dry. So that's kind of been a favorite piece of mine. And yeah, just the same with the run, having a good quality jacket that breathes and keeps me dry because it rains in Vancouver a lot in the wintertime. So yeah, it keeps me happy in training and motivated.
Very cool. So we're kind of getting close to wrapping up here, and I'm actually going to throw it back to each of you to just, if there was any kind of piece of advice that you could give people out there who are either training for their first Ironman or thinking about it, or are just in the early part of their career, what would it be? Matt, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think finding your motivation for why you want to do triathlon or do Ironman, and make sure you keep that as a focus, and hopefully that has something to do with having a good time, and setting yourself up to enjoy your training, and if you live in a place like Vancouver, maybe that means you, instead of taking a summer vacation, you take a winter vacation to Hawaii, and enjoy yourself in your training to get some quality training, but to be somewhere cool and a new environment, and make sure you're making it something fun. Because if it's all just a stress and if it's all just hard work, then at a certain point your possibility or your likelihood for burnout is going to be a lot higher. And just as I said before, set yourself up for success. If you live in Vancouver and you're training in under 75-degree weather 90% of the year, don't sign up for Ironman Lanzarote. Don't do that. Set yourself up for a race that is going to have a similar climate. If you live somewhere that's hilly, go somewhere where it's a hilly race. If you live somewhere flat, don't set yourself up. Maybe don't pick Lake Tahoe as your race. Maybe pick Arizona. But as you're trying to better yourself as a triathlete, and hopefully the goal is to finish and to have fun when you finish your races, just set yourself up for success, and try to balance your life as much as you can to make sure that there's joy behind racing and training, and I think success will come with that.
Good answer. How about you, Dylan?
Just like specific to race week, I would say come in with a plan and stick to the plan, because at big Ironman events especially, it can be really intimidating. You're going to show up, there's going to be a lot of really super fit looking people, fancy gear, crazy bikes. If I'm racking my bike in transition and another dude's racking his bike and he's got a mustache like Matt, I'm totally going to be intimidated because I can't grow a mustache like that. Don't let it get to you. Like, so many times I hear people making changes to their nutrition just because their buddy's talking about like the new greatest thing that they're going to be using for the race. That can spell total disaster. So don't do that. Just don't get caught up in the hype. Just keep calm, stick to the plan, you'll be good, and enjoy it.
Very good. And so I guess, we are really getting really close to the end here, where you guys are both going to be in Whistler next week. Maybe just do a call out to everyone and invite them up to watch you and cheer for you in Whistler.
Hopefully we'll see some people out there. I know I've got some Ben locals on watching. I'm looking forward to seeing all you guys out there, and don't be afraid to interact. I know I'm going to be looking for Dylan out there to yell at him on the run course. There's a bunch of out and back sections, and as he said in his answers earlier, you feed off people, right? So let's encourage each other out there, and we'll have a good time racing, and maybe compliment my stash. Maybe don't do the golf clap and say, "Hang in there, big fella." I get that a lot. And, I don't look like I'm running good, but often I'm right where I need to be, and that doesn't usually make me feel any better about myself. So lots of good encouragement, but, looking forward to seeing everybody out there.
Cool. I actually have a question for you, Matt. I'm wondering if the reason you're sporting the mustache is to try and fit in with the bears that might be on the course.
Yeah, no, I think last year I hit a pretty bad spot about 15, 16 miles into the run that I wasn't expecting, and I was asking for the bears to come take me out of my misery. And this year I'm feeling a little bit more confident, so I want to do my best to try to keep the bears away. So that's this is my attempt at intimidating the bears, and apparently intimidating Dylan.
And Matt actually threw, for anyone who's on Twitter, Matt threw a question out. He wants people to pipe in whether he should keep the stash or not. So if you guys out there want to find him on Twitter or give us an answer on our page, I'm sure he'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, my girlfriend did say her vote counts as 10, so I think she likes it though. So yeah, feel free to Twitter me and mo or no. That's what we're going with.
All right, well, thank you guys so much, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. For those of you who weren't able to make it, or if you have friends you think might have wanted to see this, this will be up on our YouTube channel, so you can view it then. And we'll see you all in Whistler.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.